Greetings, theists and non-theists. I am the Atheist Paladin. I recently had a video, 10 Reasons Not to Support Islam. Well, not recently, but I did have a video titled that. But I did take it down a long time ago because I had some inaccuracies in it. And now I wanted to update this list because, I have been reminded through recent history of the world and through YouTube that, Islam is still an ongoing problem. So here's my criticism of Islam. 10 reasons why you should not accept Islam. And the first one, of course, should be that Islam cannot be criticized. That's the first reason why you shouldn't accept it. Because if you cannot criticize something, then that speaks a lot to what they think of their own religion. Anybody can criticize me at any time for any reason. That's fine. You know what? I can take that criticism and I can respond to it. Those who cannot respond to criticism usually try to react in certain ways. One of them is they try to label it as hate speech. But maybe they don't understand what hate speech is. Hate speech is denigrating a certain group and promoting violence against them. I certainly don't promote violence against anyone, but what do? They say it's hate speech when you criticize Islam. Look, I'll get to it later, but one of the reasons I don't like Islam is because of violence. And I'm certainly not going to turn around and say, hey, we should be violent against who have other ideas that we don't agree with. No. Violence out of the context of self-defense is deplorable, and I would not support it in any sort of way. And then they say, oh no, it's racist. Do they understand what racism is? Probably not. Again, they are misapplying the term. Islam is not a race. It's certainly a group, but it's a group that you choose to be a part of, not the one you are born into, even though that most likely happens a lot, which is why Islam is growing. But we'll get to that later. Then they'll say, oh, you offended me. You offended Muslims. You offended Islam. You offended 1.7 billion Muslims. One, no, I don't think I offended each and every Muslim personally. And second of all, again, it shows what you think of your own religion. If your religion cannot be criticized or I cannot say anything about your religion and you have to get up in arms about it, then that shows that you really don't have the true faith of your religion. Because guess what? If your reaction to criticism is death, or you try to kill people, or you try to hurt people, then you don't believe that your religion is good enough. So that just brings me to the point of, how should you react to criticism? You should say it's incorrect. That's the easiest way to respond to criticism, is simply correct the criticism. Show that it's wrong. Show where I could be wrong about criticizing Islam. That would be the easiest way to dispel the criticism. But if you can't even handle that your response is violence, or to call it hate speech, or call it racist, then you're never going to win the argument. That is definitely for sure. The second reason to never accept Islam is because if you disbelieve, Allah has made it such that you disbelieve. Allah is the one that makes you an unbeliever. And on top of that, if that doesn't make the pièce de résistance, he'll also send you to hell. So he makes you an unbeliever. He'll send you to hell with a whole bunch of undescribable, unspeakable acts of drinking filthy water or boiling water, being burned alive, and they've been provided fresh skin so you can experience that all over again. You're starving, but there's nothing but thorns. The list goes on of a bunch of unspeakable things that should never happen for any reason, for any person at all, ever. And yet, that's perfectly justified because you're an unbeliever, which Allah made you so. What world does that make any sense? How is a God merciful when he's the reason you unbelieve, and then he's going to inflict physical punishment, it sounds like physical punishment, for the rest of eternity? That doesn't make any freaking sense. If that is merciful, then anything can called merciful. I can call beating a dog to death because he growled at me merciful. That's not right. That's not responsive at all. It's not equal at all. How is that even great? That's not. Let's not pretend God is merciful, and yet your own book says that He's the reason why people are unbelievers, and then He's going to send them in hell and make them burn for eternity. That doesn't make any sense. Number 3 is Islam is misogynist. That is very clear. And they want to try to soft pedal this, like, no, we care for women. When Islam came to being, we improved the condition of women. Okay. I don't think they understand misogyny. You can even be backhanded misogynist when you consider women weak, when you consider women to be taken care of as if they're little dainty flowers. But when it comes to it, the greatest problem with Islam is that it treats women unequally. They get half the inheritance of what a male gets. In many countries, they can't drive, they can't vote, they can't go alone. All these things are experienced just fine by males. And when they get raped, they need at least 4 male witnesses in order to say, oh yeah, she was raped. Because if they ever report the rape and they don't have that sufficient evidence to prove that they were raped, then they get charged with fornication or adultery. You telling me you care about women? That is some fucking bullshit. How about when there's evidence of them being raped, you charge the one that fucking raped them? What a concept. And then Islam accepts slavery, as if that can ever be morally justified. As I explained in one of my previous videos, and slavery is categorically wrong, the simple point is that if you believe in personal responsibility, that people should own up to their actions and should have a certain way that they act, then every person is entitled to their own labor. They're entitled to their own actions. If they cannot be entitled to their own labor, then you have just contradicted yourself and you don't believe in personal responsibility. There's no moral code. So you cannot ever say that you should be moral or you should own up to your actions, and yet you believe that people can be owned. It cannot be both. And then number 5, Islam is creationist and flat earth. There are many verses which I can go over to which the Quran says the earth is flat. And of course it is also created in 6 days, or maybe, wait, is it 8 or 6? And then if you cannot accept basic science or anything like that, if you cannot adapt to that, even accept that, then you're not even living in reality. And what's the point of saying Islam is the greatest if you're not even, with us here on earth? Number 6, Islam is the religion of dominance, not peace. The thing with Islam, and they try to say that it's the religion of peace, because if Islam rules the world, then the entire world would be filled with peace. But that doesn't even seem to be the case. Well, the word Islam means submission. So, yeah, it's about dominance and the idea that might makes right. And that is never the case. Might just make history, but it never makes right. It never makes things good or okay. Yeah, you can probably force things, but that will never end to peace. Peace is not gotten through mere force. Peace is gotten through unity, not uniformity. And that's the biggest mistake of what most totalitarians and fascists make. They think peace is had through uniformity, not unity. In uniformity, the difference is that you believe on everything, on every little single point that they say you should believe. And that's how it acts in every other country where Islam is practiced. They bring violence towards everything, to the slightest different thing that they don't agree with their culture, that doesn't agree with their society. And that is never going to be peaceful. That is always going to invent rebellion. Because one day Islam will fall from within. Because people will just one day have enough of this shit and not accept the violence that they impose on them. Number 7, even moderate Islam isn't even moderate. Now, the idea that there are moderate Muslims and the extreme Muslims, really the real difference is whether or not they accept violence as a politically justifiable thing. And even if we examine that, there are lots of Muslims that do accept violence as politically justifiable, or don't think of themselves as being a citizen of the country they live in before they think of themselves as a Muslim. And a lot of them agree with everything that we find extreme in Islam, such as the stoning of adulterers, or punishment by lopping off limbs, or basically just using violence in such a way that it is just simply deplorable. So when you consider that, even moderate Islam is extreme. Now, if you don't believe me, I will add a video or insert a video that I found on YouTube. It's very telling. Even a Muslim scoffs at the idea of a moderate Muslim. And I think you should watch this video.
Can we have the camera? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience, sir? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience? Because every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc., etc. It's the same old stuff coming all the time. And we always try to tell them, I always try to tell them that, look, it's not that speaker that we're inviting who has these extreme radical views, as you say. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Just because they're not telling you about it, or just because they're not out there in the media, doesn't mean they don't believe in them. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands. Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, take down your hands again. How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands.
Sisters in particular.
Everyone agree. Everyone agree. Brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. So it's not just these radical sheikhs then. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it is death, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind, and that is what we should apply in the world? Who agrees with that? Allahu Akbar. Are you all radical extremists? Subhanallah. So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims, you all go to the different masajids, no way, or are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that? Are you like that? No. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you're like this extreme Islam net sect or anything like that. No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to these normal masajids in Norway, the normal Sunni mosques? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar. So what's the politicians gonna say now? What's the media gonna say now? That we're all extremists? We're all radicals? We need to deport all of us from this country? Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Takbir! Takbir! Takbir!
Okay, now that we're done with that, number 8, Islam, is as much as it says that it's a good idea to not be racist and stuff, it's still racist. Most of all, it's anti-Semitic. It denigrates Jews by saying they come from pigs and apes, and even most of them don't even trust Jews. So as much as they talk about being friends of the book, yet they turn around and they hate Jews for being Jews. And the only way to not hate a Jew is, of course, if they convert to Islam. Isn't that nice? Then it's contradictory, if you couldn't tell already, that Islam has so many things that it says, and it can't even keep itself straight. A term, abrogation, was even invented to be a part of their theology to try to explain away the contradictions. And yet some contradictions cannot be explained away through that, such as, can God have a son? Yes or no. That's a yes or no something, and that's not something revealed by a later revelation. Either God can have a son or he can't. Or, how about this? How about, how many days was the earth created in, as I pointed out earlier? Was it 6 or was it 8? There are many things that contradict Islam, and the saddest part is number 10, that Islam doesn't even make sense as a correction to Christianity or Judaism. The idea that they say, oh, it's a true monotheism. Islam is a true monotheism, and that somehow it still comes from the Abrahamic faith. But when you think about it, Islam came 600 years, or in 600 AD, after Christianity. So nearly 500 years after Christianity took off, Islam comes around and it has the audacity, no, this is not what Christianity is about. This is what Christianity is about. And they also turn around and tell the Jews, no, this is not what Judaism is about. This is what the Judaism is about. And this doesn't come about through the scholarly criticism, if you think about it. It doesn't come through any true reading of history. It's just trying to repackage history as if it makes any sense. And it's like, okay, you're going to tell Christians how Christianity is like and tell them, that they're wrong, that Jesus was divine, and yet he was a prophet of Allah. I mean, you got to be a pretty bad prophet of Allah if they turn around and think that you're a God. And even though believing that is a sin, and that will send them to hell. Oops. And that you're the son of Allah. I mean, that Jesus has got to be the worst prophet of Islam ever, if you have to think about it. And then on top of that, it also tries to correct the paganism of Muhammad's day. Allah was the tribal god of Muhammad's tribe. And the tribal stone also became the main stone of Islam. They kiss it every time they go around the Kaaba. So, not only that, he tries to say, oh, it's a true monotheism, but it clearly came from another pagan religion. And yet it's an Abrahamic religion. It's trying to... that doesn't make any sense. So, when you think about it, Islam is just a made-up religion, just like every other religion is made up. And so this is supposed to be the greatest religion on earth, or this is be the greatest religion if we follow it, yet nobody seems to do it right, do they? And yet you have the right in true Islam. Maybe you don't, and maybe you should think about it. So, thank you. These are the 10 reasons why you should reject Islam. And remember, rationality is the path to righteousness.